My brothers and sisters, I need you to understand something foundational. Silence is not the absence of activity, it's the presence of purpose. Some of you have been talking too much, explaining too much, defending too much, fighting too much, and all it's doing is wearing you out. But I came to tell you, you don't have to prove anything when you're in process. There is a time to speak and a time to stay silent. And if you don't discern which season you're in, you can destroy what God is trying to build in your life. Some of you are not struggling because you're wrong, you're struggling because you're too loud in a moment that requires quiet strength. The enemy is not always attacking your voice sometimes, he's using your voice against you. Because when you talk too much, when you explain too much, when you keep rehearsing your pain, you give your power away. Sometimes silence is not surrender, it's strategy. When you're building something, whether it's a vision, a business, a healing process, a marriage, or your own identity, there are moments where you must move in silence because what's developing in you is not ready for public conversation. Everybody doesn't need access to the blueprint. The danger of talking too soon is that people who do not understand your calling will start offering opinions. And if you're not rooted, you'll start adjusting your vision to accommodate their limitations. Jesus himself often told people, tell no one, after performing a miracle. He wasn't trying to hide his power. He was protecting his purpose. When you reveal too much too soon, you give room for premature opinions to plant doubt in your spirit. Silence is not about hiding who you are. It's about shielding who you're becoming. A vision in seed form doesn't need spotlight. It needs soil. It needs time. It needs covering. And the silence is not punishment. It's preservation. See, we've been taught that loud means strong, that the more you speak, the more powerful you appear. But true strength is not in volume, it's in wisdom. A wise person knows that not every battle deserves a response. Not every challenge requires a rebuttal. Sometimes you let the storm pass and keep walking. The power of silence is that it keeps you grounded when your emotions want to rage. It allows you to choose your response, not just react in frustration or fear. Silence is self-mastery in action. Don't confuse the silence of a person who knows their assignment with weakness. Just because they're not posting, not clapping back, not explaining themselves, doesn't mean they're confused. It means they're focused. You don't have to say anything when you know what you're doing. You don't have to argue when your steps are ordered. You don't need public validation when you have divine affirmation. In silence, God speaks the loudest. The reason many can't hear direction is because the noise of their own words is drowning out his voice. We want clarity, but we keep interrupting God with our own commentary. We want peace, but we won't stop talking about what we're trying to surrender. Sometimes the greatest act of faith is to say nothing, to hold your peace and let the Lord fight your battles. It takes strength to be quiet when you're being misunderstood. It takes maturity to stay silent when you're falsely accused. It takes spiritual insight to say, I could explain this, I could prove my point, I could defend myself. But instead, I'll let time, truth, and God do the talking. There's a discipline in restraint. The enemy wants you to waste your energy on things that don't matter, so you'll be too tired to engage what does. But silence is a filter. It clears the air. It separates what's worth your energy and what's just noise. People who have purpose don't argue with everyone. They don't show up to every fight they're invited to. They know that their silence speaks louder than 1,000 words. When you're silent, you're watching, you're learning, you're aligning, you're preparing your spirit to move intentionally instead of impulsively. The caterpillar does not transform in the public eye, it cocoons in isolation. There's a metamorphosis happening when you go silent. You're not doing less, you're doing something deep, and when you emerge, people will see the beauty, but they won't understand the process. That's why you had to be silent, because what God was doing in you was sacred. You can't allow every season to be narrated by people who didn't pray for you, who don't carry your vision, who don't understand your process. Some seasons are for you and God alone, and in those seasons silence is not a prison, It's a pathway to power. Sometimes you gotta look at the situation, look at the person, look at the storm and say, you know what? I could respond, but I won't. I could prove myself, but I don't need to. I could speak, but this time I'll stay silent. Because silence is not just absence of words. It is the presence of purpose. And when you move in purpose, you don't have to shout. You just show up. Your life will do the talking. Your results will do the shouting. Your fruit will do the explaining. One of the greatest deceptions we've fallen for in this generation is the belief that if it isn't visible, it isn't valuable. That if people don't see it, it must not be happening. But real growth, authentic, transformational, lasting growth, doesn't begin in the light. It begins in the dark. It starts in the hidden places. It's nurtured in the quiet. When a seed is planted, no one celebrates. There's no applause. There's no congratulations. All you see is a buried thing in the dirt. It looks like death. It feels like silence, but something is stirring beneath the surface. Something is breaking, stretching, forming. Roots are growing downward before stems ever reach upward. That's what quiet seasons do in our lives. They give us depth before height, foundation before elevation. God will never allow you to rise higher than your character can carry. So, before he puts you on the platform, he'll put you in the process. And that process is always quiet. You won't be trending. You won't be celebrated. You may even be overlooked. But don't confuse obscurity with irrelevance. The quiet season is not a setback. It's a setup. Because God knows that if you grow too fast, you won't last. But if you grow deeply, you can stand any storm. The problem is, we keep trying to skip the quiet. We want the stage before we've been strengthened. We want the spotlight before we've been sanctified. But if you get exposure without endurance, you will crumble under the pressure. You've got to learn how to be okay not being seen while you're being shaped. You've got to learn how to be comfortable being in the background while God is developing your backbone. There are lessons in the dark that you will never learn in the light. That's why some blessings are buried first. Think about it. When a child is formed, it happens in the womb. No cameras, no spectators, no visibility. Just silence, slow progress, and strategic design. That child doesn't need to be seen to be growing. It doesn't need the world's affirmation to become who it's meant to be. All it needs is time, protection, and a sacred space to develop. And I believe God is doing the same thing with you. You may feel like nothing is moving, but you are developing in places no one can see. Your discipline is deepening. Your wisdom is expanding. Your patience is maturing. You are learning how to depend on God without public approval. That's real growth. That's sustainable growth. That's quiet growth. We live in a culture obsessed with fast results, but everything fast is not fruitful. You don't want the kind of success that's loud but shallow. You don't want growth that's impressive but unstable. You want to be like a tree planted by rivers of living water, whose roots run deep, whose fruit comes in season, and whose leaves do not wither. But trees don't shout while they're growing. They stand. They stretch, they soak in the light, and they grow in silence. You've got to trust that what God is doing in the quiet places of your life is going to prepare you for the loud places of your future. Stop panicking because no one's calling your name yet. Stop doubting the process just because it feels lonely. Growth demands isolation. Growth requires incubation. What God is forming in you is too fragile for noise. Sometimes he'll cut people off from you so you can focus. Sometimes he'll delay your promotion so you can develop your character. Sometimes he'll close doors you were sure would open, not to hurt you, but to hold you long enough for the process to do its work. He's not punishing you. He's protecting your purpose, because what you're carrying is sacred, and sacred things can't be rushed. Look at Moses. God pulled him out of Egypt, put him in the wilderness, and kept him there for 40 years. That wasn't wasted time. That was quiet growth. God had to strip off Egypt before he could send Moses back to lead others out. There are some things in your spirit, your habits, your mindset that God has to prune in the quiet before he can release you to lead in public. You don't build skyscrapers on shallow foundations. You dig deep. You reinforce. You take your time, because the taller the structure, the deeper the foundation must go. So if God is taking his time with you, maybe it's because he plans to take you higher than you imagined. Don't rush it. Don't fight it. Embrace the quiet. That's where the real work happens. That's where transformation begins. If you're in a season where it feels like nothing is happening, where no one sees you, where no one's applauding, where doors seem slow to open, don't give up. Don't mistake silence for stagnation. You are not stuck. You are growing. Your roots are stretching. Your faith is solidifying. Your identity is anchoring. And when it's time, when God says the word, you'll break through that soil and rise up strong, secure, and ready. There comes a point in every believer's life where you will be forced to confront the tension between your faith and your frustration. You will be standing between the promise God gave you and the reality you're still facing. And in that in-between place, you will be tempted to act. You will be tempted to fix it, force it, explain it, control it. But I came to tell you today, as plain and as true as I can, you need to let God work while you wait. Waiting is one of the hardest assignments God gives. Because it feels like nothing is happening, it feels like heaven is silent, it feels like you're being forgotten, and in our human nature we want to act. We want to help God out. We want to speed up the process. But you can't microwave what God is slow cooking. You can't rush what he's refining, and you definitely can't carry out divine assignments in your own human strength. Some things are not your job to fix. They are your job to trust. The problem with many of us is that we think waiting is wasted time. We think that if we're not moving, we're missing out. But waiting is not passive. In the kingdom of God, waiting is preparation. While you're waiting, God is working. While you're standing still, God is orchestrating what you cannot see. Just because you haven't received it yet doesn't mean it isn't coming. He may be building the bridge while you're standing on the edge. And if you run ahead before it's finished, you'll fall into a place you were never meant to walk alone. Think about Joseph. God gave him a dream, vision of greatness, of elevation, of leadership. But instead of seeing it come to pass immediately, Joseph found himself betrayed, sold, imprisoned, and forgotten. Years passed, and the dream looked dead. But what Joseph didn't know was that God was working the whole time, positioning people, shaping hearts, arranging circumstances. And at the right time, not a moment too soon or too late, God elevated Joseph from prison to palace. If Joseph had tried to escape that prison himself, he would have missed the divine alignment. But because he waited, he stepped into something he never could have orchestrated on his own. That's what God is doing in your life. You may not see it, you may not feel it, but he's moving behind the scenes. He's preparing the answer. He's touching hearts. He's softening the ground. He's opening doors you don't even know exist yet. And while you're stressing, striving, and stretching, God is simply saying, be still and know that I am God. Let me teach you something. Faith is not just believing God can do it. Faith is trusting him enough to let him do it his way. That means you stop trying to manipulate the outcome. You stop trying to control every step. You surrender your timeline, your plan, your formula. You say, Lord, I don't know when, I don't know how, but I know who, and I choose to rest in you. Now, resting in God doesn't mean you stop working. It means you stop worrying. It means you keep being faithful, keep showing up, keep praying, keep sowing, but you stop trying to play God. Because when you try to force things in your own strength, you interfere with what God is orchestrating in his sovereignty. Some of us are fighting battles we were never assigned to fight. We're arguing with people God already removed. We're stressing about jobs he never planned for us to take, and we wonder why we're exhausted. It's because we're moving while God is saying, wait, let me handle this. When you try to rush God, you end up birthing Ishmael instead of waiting for Isaac. You settle for almost instead of walking into abundance. And sometimes you have to thank God not just for what he did, but for what he didn't allow. You have to look back and realize that the delay was divine. The door that didn't open saved you. The person who left was protection. The opportunity you missed was never your blessing to begin with. It's in the waiting that your eyes begin to see that God's way is always better, even when it's slower. Waiting teaches you patience. It builds your character. It breaks your pride. It purifies your motives. It aligns your heart with heaven. And when the waiting season is over and the door finally opens, you will step into it not anxious but ready. Because God didn't just prepare the blessing for you. He prepared you for the blessing. So don't panic in the silence. Don't lose your faith in the waiting room. Don't start writing your own answers because the author hasn't turned the page yet. Trust the process. Trust the pauses. Trust the God who sees the end from the beginning, and know that he's not ignoring you. He's investing in you. What you think is a delay is actually a design. What feels like stillness is actually strategy. There is a silence that isn't weakness, and there is a quietness that doesn't come from fear, it comes from mastery. When you discipline your soul to remain silent, especially when everything in you wants to react, retaliate, or respond, that's not a lack of power. That is the very evidence of power. It is restraint. It is maturity. It is wisdom in motion. Because when you silence your mouth, you give your spirit a chance to speak. You give your heart a moment to reflect. You give your mind space to process. Silence isn't empty. It's full of power. You cannot live a disciplined life with an undisciplined mouth. And you cannot have an undisciplined mouth if you have an undisciplined soul. When your soul is anchored, you don't feel the need to explain yourself to everybody. You don't get pulled into every argument. You're not tossed by every wind of opinion. There's a stillness that comes from knowing who you are and whose you are. That stillness doesn't come naturally. It's developed, and it's developed in silence. Many of us are reactive because we never learned how to sit in silence. We were trained to speak up, clap back, and make ourselves heard. But spiritual discipline starts where the noise ends. If your soul can't be still, your decisions will be emotional, your actions will be impulsive, your words will be premature, and your vision will stay cloudy. Because the soul that is undisciplined is always loud, internally and externally. It doesn't know how to rest. It doesn't know how to wait. It doesn't know how to discern. It just reacts, and reactions can wreck you. Silence disciplines the soul by making you wait when your flesh wants to rush. It forces you to listen when your pride wants to speak. It holds you back when your ego wants to move forward, and it teaches you that you don't need to win every argument to win the war. Some of the greatest victories are secured in silence, because it's not the noise that proves your strength. It's your ability to hold it, contain it, and direct it properly. Do you know how many doors were closed because of a word spoken too soon? How many relationships were ruined by conversations that never should have happened? How many blessings were delayed because we reacted instead of reflected? Silence is more than not talking. It's training. It's training your instincts. It's sharpening your awareness. It's tuning your ears to hear what your mouth would have drowned out. There are moments when silence will save you from sabotage, not because you're scared, but because you've been schooled. You've learned that not every battle deserves your voice. Not every offense requires a response. Not every insult needs to be addressed. Sometimes silence says more than shouting ever could. It says, I'm not giving you my energy. I'm not lowering my standard. I'm not wasting my spirit on something that's beneath my purpose. When Jesus stood before Pilate and said nothing, it wasn't because he didn't have something to say. It was because he was rooted in purpose. He knew that the outcome of his destiny didn't depend on a debate. It didn't require a defense. It only required obedience, and some of us need to understand that staying silent doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're walking in purpose. You're refusing to be dragged into distractions that have nothing to do with your assignment. Silence disciplines the soul by teaching you how to manage your emotions. The more silent you become, the more you begin to see clearly. The less you speak, the more you discern. You begin to notice the things you used to miss, the tone in someone's voice, the real meaning behind their words, the spiritual climate in a room. You begin to hear God more clearly because you've made room in your spirit to listen. Too often we drown out the voice of God with our own internal noise. We pray, but we don't pause to listen. We worship, but we never sit long enough for him to speak. But silence makes space. Silence says, "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening." Silence invites intimacy. It opens your heart. It aligns your soul. It heals your thoughts. That's why the devil wants to keep you busy, loud, agitated. Because if he can keep your soul noisy, he can block your clarity. You don't need more noise to be effective. You need more silence to be wise, and wisdom is what keeps you. Wisdom is what shields you. Wisdom is what builds your life on rock instead of sand. But you can't get wisdom if you're always talking. You can't receive divine instruction when your mouth is full of self-defense. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is say nothing. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them misunderstand. Let them misjudge. You stay silent. You keep building. You keep praying. You keep walking. Because silence disciplines the soul in such a way that when your time comes, your fruit will speak for you. Your results will testify. Your character will shine. And your soul will be at peace because you didn't waste energy proving something God had already settled. There is a sacred power in timing. And when you truly understand that, you will stop forcing things, rushing things, chasing things, or begging for things that are not yet ready for you. You see, everything God does, he does in order. He does it in rhythm. He does it in divine alignment. He is not random. He is not reactionary. He is a God of appointed moments, and when that moment comes, nothing can stop what he has ordained. So you don't have to stress or strive to be seen. Because when the right time comes, it will all be revealed. Too many of us are obsessed with exposure. We want people to see us before we've grown into what we're called to be. But let me tell you something. If it comes too soon, it can destroy you. If you're not ready for it, it won't bless you, it will break you. God, in his mercy, will sometimes hide you on purpose, not because you're not valuable, but because you're still in process. He will cover you to protect what he's perfecting. Look at David. He was anointed king while still tending sheep. Nobody saw him coming. He wasn't even invited to the anointing ceremony. He was overlooked, underestimated, and uncelebrated. But he was God's choice. And though he was anointed, he didn't rush to the throne. He went back to the field. He went back to serving. He went back to preparation. Because David understood something that many today do not. Anointing doesn't mean it's time. Just because you're called doesn't mean you're ready. And just because you're not recognized yet doesn't mean you're not chosen. The right time will reveal everything. It will reveal who was truly loyal. It will reveal who only showed up for the spotlight. It will reveal what was built on sand and what was built on stone. Time is the great revealer. And if you're patient, if you stay faithful, if you keep doing the work in silence, what's real will rise. You won't have to promote yourself. You won't have to push yourself into rooms. God will bring the right people, the right opportunities, the right favor to you. Stop forcing open doors that God hasn't unlocked. Stop trying to manipulate timelines that God never authored. When you move too fast, you step outside the grace zone, and outside of grace, everything becomes a grind. You start relying on your own strength, your own influence, your own hustle. And that's when you wear yourself out. But when you move in God's timing, there's a flow, there's a peace, there's a provision that follows you. You don't have to explain what God is doing in you. You don't have to justify why you're still waiting. Just wait with expectation, wait with integrity, wait with worship in your heart, because delay is not denial. It's design, and what's coming to you is bigger than you think. It's worth the wait. God is not just preparing the blessing for you. He's preparing you for the blessing. Because the right opportunity at the wrong time is still the wrong thing, and when you're ready, truly ready, it will not pass you by. Let me tell you something else. What's yours will find you. You don't have to beg for it. You don't have to bend over backward for it. You don't have to become someone else to receive it. All you have to do is stay in alignment, stay in faith, keep your heart clean, keep your motives pure, and keep moving forward even when no one's watching, even when no one is clapping, even when it feels like you're going unnoticed, because heaven sees you, and when the appointed time comes, all will be revealed. Don't panic when others are being promoted before you. Don't compare their spotlight to your shadows. You don't know the cost of their position. You don't know what they had to sacrifice to get there, or what they'll have to endure to stay there. Your story is not their story. Your pace is not their pace. Trust God enough to know that He's not late. He's precise. He's sovereign, and His timing is always perfect. There's going to come a moment where everything that didn't make sense will suddenly make sense. The closed doors, the quiet seasons, the hidden years, the delays, the detours. You'll look back and say, God, thank you for not giving it to me when I wanted it. Thank you for holding me until I was whole. Thank you for hiding me while I was healing. Thank you for preparing me in private before promoting me in public. You're not late. You're just on schedule for a timeline that's bigger than your understanding. So don't let temporary silence convince you of permanent insignificance. Don't let unseen seasons make you question your worth. What's forming in the dark will shine in the light, and when it does, it won't just be visible. It will be undeniable. So now that you've heard the word, now that the truth has touched your spirit, I want you to walk away with this deep in your soul. You don't have to force what God has already finished. You don't have to strive for what's been assigned. You don't have to chase what's on the way. All you need to do is stay grounded, stay faithful, and stay silent in the right moments, because everything God has for you will come to you naturally, in His time and in His way. Silence isn't a sign of weakness. It's the mark of wisdom. It's a strategic tool that God uses to shape your character, to deepen your roots, and to align your spirit. In the silence, growth is happening. In the quiet, preparation is taking place. While you are waiting, while you are being overlooked, while you are being misunderstood, God is working. He's working behind the scenes, lining things up, setting the stage, pruning, building, arranging the right relationships, and releasing divine timing. Don't rush it. Don't ruin it. Don't resent the wait. Embrace it. Because the pressure you feel is just the weight of your becoming. You are not forgotten. You are being formed. And when the moment comes, when the doors open, when the fruit is ripe, when the breakthrough arrives, you won't have to say a word. Your life will speak. Your fruit will testify. And your silence will have prepared you for the stage. Stay silent. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them doubt. You just keep growing. Keep trusting. Keep believing. Because everything you're waiting for, everything you're praying for, everything you're preparing for is coming. Not because you chased it, but because you trusted. Not because you forced it, but because you had the faith to let it flow. Stay silent, and everything will come, naturally, divinely, and right on time. Amen.